Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Welcome back, guys, and this is the sixth verse of Surah Al-Fathia. Now, listen.
اهدنا الصراط المستقيم.
That is one of the prayer for guidance. The last three verses of the surah consist of a prayer on the path of man. In other words, Allah Himself, in His great mercy, has taught man what to pray for. Guide us in the straight path, the path of those on whom you have bestowed your grace, not of those who have incurred your wrath, nor of those who have gone astray. The implications of guidance. A problem of highest significance arises here. The teaching with regard to the prayer for being guided in the straight path is addressed equally to all men or all Muslims and to saints and prophets who have already received guidance and are even a source of guidance for other men. Why should they repeatedly pray for something they already possess? The answer to this question depends on knowing all that is implied by guidance. The answer would at the same time remove all difficulties and confusion which arise in the minds of those who, not being familiar with the true significance of guidance, begin to suspect that certain verses of the Holy Quran were contradicting certain others. The meaning of hidayah or guidance. The best explanation of the word hidayah, which means guidance, has been offered by Imam Roghib al-Isfahani in his Mufradat al-Quran, which can be summed up to: Hidayah signifies leading someone towards his destination, gently and kindly, while guidance in the real sense issues forth from Allah alone, and it has several degrees. Now let's talk about the first degree of guidance. The first degree of guidance is general and covers everything that exists in the universe: the minerals, plants, animals, and so on and so forth. It would surprise many to hear of guidance in relation to minerals, but the Holy Quran makes it quite clear that all forms of existence in the universe and every particle of dust possesses life, sensitivity, and even consciousness and understanding in its own degree and according to its own sphere of existence. Some of this existence possesses more of this essence than others, and some less. Therefore, those who have very little of it are considered to be inanimate and devoid of consciousness. The Sharia too has recognized this difference, and such creatures have not been made to bear the obligation of observing the injunctions of Allah. The Creator, which show obvious signs of life, but not those of consciousness and reason, are considered to be living but not rational. Creatures showing the sign of consciousness and reason, along with those of life, are called rational beings. Because of these differences in the degree of consciousness, men and jinn, alone of all the existence in the universe, have been made subservient to the injunction of the Sharia and accountable for their actions. For they alone have the necessary consciousness and understanding, but it does not mean that other creatures or existence are totally devoid of life or sensitivity, or of consciousness and understanding. The Holy Quran is very explicit on this point. Nothing exists that does not celebrate its praise, but you do not understand their mode of praising. That's in Quran chapter 17, verse 44. Have you not seen that everything in the heavens and the earth proclaims Allah's purity, and the birds too that spread their wings? Each of them knows its prayer and its mode of praising, and Allah is aware of what they do. Quran chapter 24, verse 41. Evidently, One cannot extol and praise Allah without knowing Allah. It is equally evident that knowing Allah is the highest form of knowledge possible, and such knowledge cannot be gained unless one possesses consciousness and understanding. These verses, therefore, show that everything that exists in the universe possesses life, sensitivity, understanding, and consciousness, though it may not always be apparent to the ordinary observer. A truth which has been endorsed by all the great religions, by certain ancient philosophers, and lately even by experimental science. This, then, is the first degree of guidance, which is common to minerals, plants, animals, men, jinn, and all the forms of creation. The Holy Quran speaks of this primary and general guidance in these words. He gave to everything its distinctive form and then guided it. Quran chapter 20 verse 50. Or, as we find another surah, celebrate the name of your Lord, the Most High, who has created all things, well proportioned them, and who has determined and guided them. Quran chapter 81 verse 1 to 2. That is to say, Allah has given every creature a particular nature and function and guided it in a way which should correspond to its station in the scheme of things. Thanks to this general guidance, everything in the universe is performing its allotted function with such marvelous efficiency. For example, it is the ears that hear a sound and not the eyes or the nose. Similarly, the nose smells but cannot see. The eye see but cannot smell. In short, there is nothing in the heaven and the earth but comes to the All-Merciful as a sovereign. Quran chapter 19 verse 93. Now let's move on to the second degree of guidance. Unlike the first, the second degree of guidance is not general but particular. It is limited to those creatures which are considered to be rational, that is, men and jinn. This kind of guidance comes to every man through prophets and revealed books. Some accept this guidance and become believers, that is, Muslims. Some reject it and become disbelievers, kafirs. Now, the third degree of guidance. The third degree of guidance is still more particular, being special to true believer, mu'min, and the God-fearing. Like the first degree, the third kind of guidance too descends directly to the individual from Allah, and it is called tawfiq. That is to say, Allah's grace provides a man with internal and external means and circumstances which should make it easy and not pleasant for him to accept and act upon the guidance of the Holy Quran, and difficult to ignore or oppose it. The scope of the third degree of guidance is limited and its level indefinite. Here is the sphere in which man not only can but is required to make a progress in the veritable sense of the term. The agency of this progress is the performance of virtuous deed. All increase in virtuous deeds brings with it an increase in divine guidance. Keeping in mind the three distinct degrees of guidance, one can easily see the guidance is a thing which everyone does possess in some way, and yet no one, not even the greatest, can do without wishing to attain more of its advanced or higher stages. Hence, of all the prayers man can address to Allah, the most important is the prayer for guidance, which has been taught to us in the very first surah of the Holy Quran. And this prayer is as necessary for the greatest of prophets and men of Allah as for an ordinary Muslim. That is why the Surah Al-Fathia, in enumerating the material and spiritual benefits of the conquest of Mecca in the last days of the Holy Prophet's peace be upon him, also says, and to guide you on the straight path. When these verses were revealed, the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, had already received guidance and was a source of guidance for others. The good thing of receiving guidance can, in this situation, have only one meaning, that is, attain some very high station of guidance at the time. Guidance, some notes of caution. In concluding this discussion about the different implications of guidance, here are some points that would help you avoid certain confusions and errors. 1. The Holy Quran sometimes speaks of divine guidance as being general and common to believers and non-believers. In fact, to all creatures, and sometimes makes it out to be particular and special to the God-fearing. So the unwary may be led to sense a contradiction here. But once it is understood that one degree of guidance is common to all, whereas another degree is limited to particular cases, the doubt and confusion readily resolves itself. On the one hand, the Holy Quran reminds us again and again that Allah does not grant guidance to the unjust and the unrighteous. On the other hand, it repeatedly declares that Allah guides all. The misunderstanding which may arise here is also dispelled by knowledge of the degrees of guidance. Now, we can easily see that the general guidance is given to all without any distinction. But the third and very special degree of guidance is not granted to the unjust and the unrighteous. Thirdly, the first and the third degrees of guidance pertain to a direct act of divine grace, and no prophet can have anything to do with it, for the function of the prophets is related only to the second degree. Whenever the Holy Quran speaks of prophets, peace be upon him, as guides, it is always referring to the second degree and to it alone. On the other hand, when the Holy Quran, addressing the noble prophets, peace be upon him, says, "You cannot guide whom you please," that's Quran chapter 28, verse 56. It is the third degree of guidance which is intended. That is to say, it is neither the function of a prophet nor is it in his power to provide tawfiq to anyone. In other words, to make it easy for anyone to accept guidance. To round up now, the Quranic prayer, "Guide us in the straight path," is most comprehensive and certainly one of the most important prayers taught to man. No member of the human family can claim not to need it. No success, no prosperity in this or in the other world can really come without being on the straight path. Particularly so for man lost in the ancients of mortal life. The prayer for the straight path is an elixir, though people do not realize it.